Hi guys, Elaine here, and I'm going to do a quick live about the rules of fictional writing. Ooh, rules, hate rules. Pretty interesting stuff really, but I'm going to start by talking about the English language, about other types of rules, because where the English language is concerned, there are actually 31 rules of spelling. Spelling is very important, grammar is very important. Now those 31 rules do not include an extra 9 parts to Rule 12 concerning the silent final E. You know, the E which turns cut to Q, bar to bear, star to stare, wad to wade. So there's 9 extra rules concerning that. It also doesn't include the 3 extra parts to Rule 31 concerning the schwa rules. And this also concerns stressed syllables and unstressed words. Please feel free to go and have a look at the schwa rules. Now, where grammar's concerned, again, grammar's very important. Now, there are approximately 17 basic rules for grammar, and these centre around using the correct types of punctuation, apostrophes where appropriate, knowing the difference between possessive and plural apostrophes, that's a big important thing. Also includes rules on double negatives, capital letters and when to use them, repetition, prepositions, conjunctions, and so on and so on. Now these rules for spelling and grammar, although they are important, it was actually quite hard to learn them, memorise them. You probably know more rules than you give yourself credit for because it's used in everyday language and everyday speech, but language and speech does evolve and there are certain regional things that come into play, but they are still important rules. Now, for both the aforementioned and as with anything which evolves over time, there will be exceptions to the rules. Take the rule for spelling number 16. Now that states that in English, the letter I cannot appear twice next to each other in the same word, which means that the word skiing can't be an English word. It's obviously been brought in from somewhere else, and this is what we talk about when we talk about language and words evolving. Now in the grammar section of the rules, we have a rule which states for every sentence there should be one noun and one verb. A sentence with more than one noun or verb is confusing to understand. Now if I've understood that rule correctly, then the following sentence that I'm going to read to you is grammatically incorrect, and that sentence is: my mother looked at my grandmother with fear in her eyes when I hit them both with my car. I understand what that means. I'm presuming you lot understand what that means, but according to the grammar rule I read earlier, that sentence is grammatically incorrect. Again, I think we have to think about language evolving. Now, there are reasons, good reasons, why we have spelling rules and grammar rules. They are what makes our language understandable. It's the difference between going for a wee and getting a wee. I know somebody who says all the time, instead of saying she's going for a wee, she'll say, right, I'm getting a wee, and it grates on me every time, and I just look at her and say, going for a wee, and she just laughs. But the rules are there for that reason. They help us to understand the differences between words that sound alike, like THROUGH, going through a door, and THREW, she threw the ball, through and through. And it's learning these rules from an early age that allows us to understand the context and therefore the correct pronunciation of words that are spelled the same but with different meanings, as in, her tears fall freely as she tears the letter to shreds, or I think I'll read this book even though I read it last year. It's quite amazing how your brain is just enough steps ahead of your eyes to know which version of that word you need for the context of the sentence. I think that's pretty amazing anyway. So where does that leave us where fiction writing is concerned? What about those rules? You know, the show don't tell, learn your craft, write drunk, edit sober rules. Where are these rules? As it turns out, there are no rules for fiction writing. No rules at all. Absolutely none. Nil. Nada. Nothing. If you Google fictional writing rules for fiction, anything to do with the rules of fiction writing, You will get shed loads of pages proclaiming the golden rules of fictional writing. But every page will give you different rules, because every page's rules will contain rules by different authors. These so-called rules are actually guidelines that the writer of them has lived by. Okay, so it can be argued that they could be right because they are from a successful author. But if you followed every rule written by a successful author, you'd spend more time reading the rules and even more time figuring out which rules contradict somebody else's rules. So here it is in black and white, or in this case here it is from my mouth once and for all. There are no rules for fiction writing. There are spelling rules, there are grammar rules. And if you want to talk about agents and publishers, then yes, they also have rules. They have rules about what you need to send and when you need to send it, how you need to send it, what colour ribbons to package it up in. But where the actual writing of fiction is concerned, there are no rules. No rules, not one. So if you want to write from 2 points of view, do it. If you want to tell more than show, do it. If you want to write in orange ink and include hand-drawn phallic designs, you go for it. Don't sweat the rules. Don't worry about the so-called rules from the big authors out there, because they're not rules, they're guidelines. And you know what? Make your own guidelines. Tell your own story. But if there's one thing I could just finish off with, just something for you to think about, is what Eudora Welty sums up with one of her rules, or one of her guidelines. And she says, one can no more say to write stay home than one can say to write leave home. It is the writing that makes its own rules and conditions for each person. So go out there, write your own story, make your own rules, and be successful and be happy. I'm signing off now because I've got somewhere to be in 20 minutes. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me today. Big hi and hello to everybody, and I'll talk to you again when I find a very interesting subject to talk about next time. Bye.